morning, what we're going to do for just a moment, Pastor Byron and I, all the way from Israel, we are going to tag team a message today. So if you would, for just a moment, would you watch this from Pastor Byron all the way from Israel?
Good morning from Jerusalem. We have a group of 35 of us, 34 of us. We're not really sure. We might have lost somebody along the way, but I think there are 34 of us here from around the Panhandle, a couple other places that have joined together in a tour of the Holy Land. And it's been a great week. We're excited to be here. We hope you've had a great week of spring break back at home and are ready to get back into normal routine starting what'll be tomorrow for you. I'm filming this on Saturday morning, which is the Sabbath here in Jerusalem. It's interesting to be in this land because speaking of hope, there's all kind of things that should be based on hope, but we find so much here that seems to be just hopeless. You have Herod the Great, the evil dictator king who in some ways was this brilliant engineer and visionary, seen as places such as Caesarea Maritima, over Caesarea by the sea, where it's just this incredible work, this seaport that was built and palace, and you see this visionary skill and giftedness there. But then the same one, Herod, you see his work at Masada, this fortress up on top of a mountain, on top of a cliff. And there you realize that this one who was so visionary was really hopeless, or in fact his hope was in himself, because he was a paranoid individual. And this place was built not only there, but Herodium, different places around Israel that he built, because his hope was in himself, and he was so afraid that people, even his own family, were going to destroy him. He was a hopeless individual. You see here in this land that we would consider a land of hope, a lot of other hopelessness. You see on days such as today, the Sabbath day, you see people who are working the best they can to keep the law, to keep the old covenant. And in that, there's such hopelessness. There's no way that man could ever be good enough to save himself. Yet they practice this and go through these rituals that it's like the sun set last night, and all of a sudden they start practicing these laws, and then the sun will set tonight, and they'll give them back up, and they'll pick up their old habits. So it just makes no sense to practice these ritualistic type things that somehow would be expected to give them hope. But you see other hopelessness in different ways here. It's interesting, yesterday we were at the Western Wall, or oftentimes referred to as the Wailing Wall. They're at the temple in Jerusalem up near the Temple Mount, and there people come and they pray and they touch the wall and they repeat prayers and they fold up little pieces of paper and put in the cracks of the wall, hoping that being there close to the Holy of Holies, that the prayer might be answered like it would be, or more so than praying from anywhere else. But in that is really a sense of hopelessness and despair. And you find other hopelessness even in pilgrims that come here, because somehow they think, well, if I just pray in the Holy Land, it'll make my prayers get answered. And in some ways, that's kind of funny. The Israeli people say, well, it's a local call, so it's closer to heaven to pray from here. But really in that is hopelessness, because our hope is found not in a place, but in a person. And that's what gives this place hope to us, is the hope found in Jesus Christ, who was born here, lived his life here, who died here, a place where we'll visit today, who was betrayed at a place that we'll visit. He rose from the grave at a place that we'll visit on this very day. So our hope is not in the place of the garden tomb. Our hope is in the fact that Jesus is not there. So I hope that you will join us here someday on this trip. It's a great time and experience, but make no mistake, our hope is not in the place. It's an incredible place, an incredible experience, and a great opportunity to be here. But our hope is found in a person and not in a place. Listen to these words from Lamentations chapter 3. It says, "Yet this I call to mind, and therefore I have hope. Because of the Lord's great mercies we are not consumed, for his compassions never fail. They are new every morning. Great is thy faithfulness. I say to myself, the Lord is my portion, therefore I will wait for him." Verse 25, Lamentations 3 says, "The Lord is good to those whose hope is in him to the one who seeks him. So our hope is in Jesus. Make no mistake about that. Have a wonderful time of worship, and we'll see you back home in another couple of days.
I want to ask you a quick question. I'm going to tie in some of what he said in just a few moments, but I want to ask you just a quick question as we as we continue on this morning. How many of you, and you don't have to raise your hand, just think of a person or persons in your mind. How many of you have what you might call a God expert? Somebody that you go to, or maybe it's a group of people, or maybe it's a group of men or ladies or that kind of thing that you go to when you have a theological or a doctrinal question that you just feel like, oh man, I just don't know that I can answer that. In your mind, think of that person or those people, okay? Everybody has them. It's fine. Don't think I'm going to cast you out because you have somebody like that. Everybody has them. We all have those people in our lives. We'll come back to that in just a moment. Keep those folks in your mind. Well, if you would this morning turn to 1 Chronicles, not 1 Corinthians, 1 Chronicles chapter 13 with me. And in a minute, we are going to be there in 1 Chronicles chapter 13. I want to give you a little backstory while you are turning there. Most of you know that in the Old Testament, there was something called the Ark of the Covenant. Okay? The Ark of the Covenant was representative of the presence of God. Where the Israelites went, so went the Ark. And under Samuel's leadership, you go back to Samuel, under his leadership, the Israelites lost a major battle against the Philistines, and the Philistines stole the Ark. And during the time that it was stolen, quite a few people died trying to move it, touch it, do things with it, because it was not touched or moved or done in according to the way God had ordained it to be moved or touched. Okay? So you have Samuel, all right? You go back, we're right in Scripture, Joshua, Judges, Ruth. Then you have 1st and 2nd Samuel, 1st and 2nd Kings, 1st and 2nd Chronicles, right? So in 1st and 2nd Samuel, you have Samuel. And then later on, we have King Saul, okay? So with King Saul, we really don't have a whole lot of record in Scripture or anything like that of a significant Ark of the Covenant event. All right? We don't have anything significant in there about what happened and how things were done and all of that kind of thing. And we'll see why in just a minute, okay? But nothing of significance was there. So fast forward a little bit more to King David, all right? King David is now in command. Let's read chapter 13, verses 1 through 4 here in 1 Chronicles. Then David consulted with the captains of the thousands and the hundreds, even with every leader. David said to all the assembly of Israel, "If it seems good to you, and if it's from the Lord our God, let us send everywhere to our kinsmen who remain in all the land of Israel, also to the priests and the Levites who are with them in their cities with pasture lands, that they may meet with us, and let us bring back the ark of our God to us. For we did not seek it in the days of Saul." Then all the assembly said that they would do so, for the thing was right in the eyes of the people. Okay? So we have Operation Bring Back the Ark. All right? Cue Mission Impossible music. We have Operation Bring Back the Ark. And we actually saw there in verse 3 where it says that the Israelites did not seek the ark during the time of Saul. So I want you to catch this. Now, this is not, listen, I have 1 point today, okay? If you miss my 1 point, it is a blown day, all right? I have 1 point today. This is not that point, but I want you to catch this, okay? When leadership doesn't seek the Lord, neither does its people, okay? When leadership doesn't seek the Lord, neither does its people. That's what happened during the time of Saul with the ark. Let's keep going. Look at verse 7. Verse 7. They carried the ark of God on a new cart from the house of Abinadab, and Uzzah and Ahio drove the cart. David and all of Israel were celebrating before God with all their might, even with songs and with lyres and harps and tambourines and cymbals and with trumpets. This is a massive event. Huge celebration of all celebrations that David is leading, even to the point that he brought out tambourines. If you're a part of the music ministry, you are very well aware of my disdain for tambourines, okay? So David brings out tambourines at this point, all of the instruments, major celebration. Look in verse 9. When they came to the threshing floor of Chidon, Uzzah put out his hand to hold the ark, because the oxen nearly upset it. The anger of the Lord burned against Uzzah, so he struck him down because he put out his hand to the ark, and he died before God. Okay, massive celebration turns really quick into a funeral for Uzzah, right? He reaches out to touch it. The Lord strikes him down. He dies. Can you imagine being in a worship service where something like that happened? We're celebrating, we're singing, someone does something wrong against the Lord's commands, and somebody dies right here. Let's skip ahead about 3 months later. Look at 1 Chronicles chapter 15, starting in verse 11. Then David called for Zadok and Abiathar the priests, and for the Levites, for Uriel, Asaiah, Joel, Shemaiah, Eliel, and Aminadab, and said to them, "You are the heads of the fathers' households of the Levites. Consecrate yourselves, both you and your relatives, that you may go up and bring the ark of the Lord of God to the place where I have prepared for it. Because you did not carry it at first, the Lord our God made an outburst on us, for we did not seek him according to the ordinance." Okay, so a little bit more history here. And again, you have to go back to 1 Samuel. Really kind of around 1 Samuel chapter 4 to know who Abiathar is. You would have thought I would have picked a passage this morning with easier names to go by, but I didn't. So here we are. Abiathar was leading the people for the first time as they tried to bring the ark back up. Remember, it's been in captivity, it's been stolen. Nothing really significant has been done in the time of Saul. So David figures, I want to bring back the presence of the Lord, right? A man after God's own heart. He wants to bring back the representation of the presence of the Lord. And so he then assigns these guys to bring it back. Do any of you know who Abiathar is? Abiathar is the great-grandson of Eli. And if you look back in the book of 1 Samuel, Eli's family was cursed from ever working in the house of the Lord again because they did not do things according to the Lord's will. Now Abiathar, his great-grandson, is not only there, but now he is leading something out. Bad news, right? Nothing good can happen in this situation. Again, Eli's family was earlier cursed and told that none of his family would ever minister in the house of the Lord again. So in verse 13, we see David come to the realization that they had done something wrong, that they had not followed God's ordinances about the ark. Look in verse 14. Chapter 15, verse 14. So the priests and the Levites consecrated themselves to bring up the ark of the Lord of God of Israel. The sons of the Levites carried the ark of God on their shoulders with poles thereon, as Moses had commanded according to the word of the Lord. The entire situation could have been avoided. The entire situation was brought about because some guys saw the Philistines put the ark on a cart to try to return it after they had stolen it back chapters ago, okay? Again, you have to go all the way back to 1 Samuel to see the account of the ark being stolen after a Philistine defeat. Mind you, also, 70 men during that time frame had died because they had not done things in accordance to the Lord. After it had been stolen, 70 men and even other gods, little g gods, had died or had been demolished in trying to do something with the ark because it had not been done in the correct way. And they, all of these things, under Abiathar's leadership, still decided to do things their own way. Can you just imagine the conversation? Like, hey, buddy, don't you remember back when, like, guys 13 through 27 died? Or what about 38 through 42? Like, don't you think we should think about this? Do something a little bit different? No, let's do it again. It's okay. I mean, Eli's family was cursed, but surely we could go about doing it, even though we're part of Eli's family, you know? YOLO, you only live once, right? Let's do it. Hey, let's try it again. Basically, here's what happened. They took the easy, more comfortable, less assertive way out. They put the ark on a cart. They put the ark on a cart. Some sort of wheels, may have had extra handles, something like that. A cart to move the ark. Don't miss this. The ark was intended for human contact. There were poles that men were supposed to carry on their shoulders and carry the presence, the representation of the presence of the Lord wherever they went. Think about the presence of God. Does He desire personal contact with you and me? Yes. God's original commands were to have physical hands on the ark, the poles of the ark, to move it. Here's where the definition of a cart comes in. You can see it on the screen. A cart is anything that we use to carry God for us. That's still not my one point, but you can write that down. A cart is anything that we use to carry God for us. It's the shortcuts that we attempt and the God experts that we prefer. You remember those people that you had come to mind just a little while ago? It's the shortcuts and the God experts that we prefer. It's the people. It may be a pastor, numerous pastors. It may be places. Do you remember what Pastor Byron was talking about people coming to the wall, right? Oh my gosh, if I go and pray at that place, my prayer is more holy. If I go and I say the same words as that pastor did, then it's got to be more holy. Shortcuts, right? Maybe even conferences, maybe songs, maybe styles of music, maybe other churches that you're watching and listening to that you are trying to create the presence of God with all of those extra things. And what we're looking at today is a cart, a shortcut, or a God expert, somebody or something that we prefer. And sometimes we actually trick ourselves into believing that sometimes God might actually prefer those people over you and over me. And that's wrong. You have a God that says you are known. You are known. You have the Creator God that created you for a relationship, for personal contact. He made you. He loves you. He knows you. Yes, we are to know God and make Him known. That should be the life song of you personally and of our church. But there's another part to that story, in that you and I are known. I want you to do something for just a moment. I still haven't made it to my point. And this is not the invitation, but I want you to close your eyes for just a minute. I want you to just remove distraction. And I want to read this psalm for you. And as I read this, would you take these words and know how much you are known? O Lord, you have examined my heart, and you know everything about me. You know when I sit down or when I stand up. You know my thoughts even when I'm far away. You see me when I travel and when I rest at home. You know everything I do. You know what I'm going to say even before I say it, Lord. You go before me and you follow me. You place your hand of blessing on my head. Such knowledge is too wonderful for me, too great for me to understand. I can never escape from your spirit. I can never get away from your presence. If I go up to heaven, you are there. If I go down to the grave, you are there. If I ride the wings of the morning, if I dwell by the farthest oceans, even there your hand will guide me and your strength will support me. I could ask the darkness to hide me and the light around me to become night. But even in darkness, I cannot hide from you. To you, the night shines as bright as day. Darkness and light are the same to you. You made all the delicate inner parts of my body, and you knit me together in my mother's womb. Thank you for making me so wonderfully complex. Your workmanship is marvelous. How well I know it. You watched me as I was being formed in utter seclusion, as I was woven together in the dark of the womb. You saw me before I was born. Every day of my life was recorded in your book, and every moment was laid out before a single day had passed. How precious are your thoughts about me, O God. They cannot be numbered. I can't even count them. They outnumber the grains of sand. And when I wake up, you are still with me. Would you look up at me for a minute? Does God want you to listen to pastors and to wise counsel and things here on this side of heaven? Yes, there's nothing wrong with that. Nothing at all. But he also wants to know you. He wants to know you in your personal relationship with him. He wants you to know him. Here's my one point for the day. It's on the screen. He doesn't want your second-hand relationship through someone else. He wants your first-hand relationship in you and with you. He doesn't want your second-hand relationship in your carts with people that you have come and listened to, and you absorb it all, and you absorb it all, and it's in you, and you hear all these scriptures, and you hear all these songs, and you hear all these things, and yet it's not a personal relationship with him. He wants a first-hand relationship. If you took all of those other things away, if you took what you heard from a pastor today, if you took what you heard in a song today, if you took what you heard in a conference months ago, if you took what you learned all this time ago from someone else, and if you took all those things away, would you still have a personal relationship with the Lord? When you only have a second-hand relationship with the Lord, you die a slow spiritual death without the personal first-hand relationship with the Lord. Again, all those other things are good and there's nothing wrong with them. But if you don't have that first-hand relationship with the Lord, then you are missing out. And you are going to miss the great things that God has for you. You were made to wake up and be full of the glory of the Lord. You were made to start your day knowing that your battles are already won and not live defeated. You have the presence of the Lord living in you. You don't have to think about an ark being around you somewhere representative of the presence of the Lord. You have it right here in you. You have a heavenly Father who loves you and who knows you. You have the opportunity for a first-hand relationship every single day. There's a brand new song that just came out about a month ago, probably a couple of months ago. And I want to read some of the lyrics of that song. It's a song by Shane and Shane, and it's called You've Already Won. And the first verse says this: there's peace that outlasts darkness, hope that's in the blood. There's future grace that's mine today that Jesus Christ has won. So I can face tomorrow, for tomorrow is in your hands. All I need you will provide, just like you always have. The second verse says, there's mercy in the waiting. There's manna for today, and when it's gone, I know you're not. You are my hope and stay when the sea is raging. Your Spirit is my help. He'll fix my eyes on Jesus Christ. I'll say that it is well. Oh, I know that it is well. And here's the chorus. I'm fighting the battle that you have already won. No matter what comes my way, I will overcome. Don't know what you're doing, but I know what you've done. I'm fighting the battle that you have already won. Jesus wants to know you. Not what songs you sing, not what conferences you've been to, not what pastors you listen to, not what live streams you listen to. He doesn't want to know any of those things. He wants to know you, and he wants to know me. I want you to think about that this morning and where your firsthand relationship is with the Lord. Just again, like what Pastor Byron was saying, there are so many things there in that Jewish culture that are used as a cart, as a secondhand kind of relationship that is not a personal relationship. Unless they're a Messianic Jew, they don't even believe in Jesus the way that you and I do. So think about your firsthand relationship with the Lord today. Because again, you have the God who knows and who loves you. Desire that today.